Let's go for it!
I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff. I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff.
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the guy behind this great channel, The Dark Stuff. Thanks a lot for tuning in. This is going to be my probably like semi-annual Kiss related video. I do a couple of Kiss videos a year, like I said, although they are my favorite band. I prefer not to talk about them because I'm generally kind of down on what they've been doing for the longest time. But a couple of years ago, I broke my boycott of seeing them in their current incarnation, and I saw them on the, I think it was called the Rock the Nation tour. I did a video about that. I saw them again recently here in Omaha on their End of the Road tour, which promises to be their finale as a band. I mean, I thought when they did a farewell tour in 2000, 2001, that farewell meant goodbye, but it turns out it just meant farewell to Ace Frehley and Peter Criss for the most part. So, for the purposes of this video, we will be tabling the discussion as to whether, Ace Frehley and Peter Criss should be the version of the band along with Gene and Paul and not Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer. It's a debate that is never going to be solved to the satisfaction of anyone, really. So there's just no point in getting into it. My thoughts on this subject are well known, and my Kiss bona fides are impossible to dispute, okay, at this point. I've been seeing Kiss since early 1983 on the Creatures of the Night tour, okay? So that's, what, 36 years ago? Hardly the oldest guy out there seeing Kiss. I didn't get to see them in their original era back in the 70s. That's for guys older than me, but I feel like I've seen them enough that, well, anyways, let's not even question that, okay? So since we're not really going to debate the whole idea of the current version of Kiss and whether they're actually going to, this is really going to be their end of the road or whatever, which actually, spoiler alert, I think it is going to be their end of the road. It's just a question of how long it's going to be before they get there. But we're going to table that whole discussion. Like I said, we're not going to get into that. I'm going to do my best to kind of just review the show, encapsulate it as quickly as I can. I'm not going to go song by song or whatever. I'm going to give my thoughts on the set list, on the show itself, and then maybe some constructive criticism about what I feel like was missing from the show. Because if I've been into a band for 36 years and they're announcing this is it, we're actually going away and we want to do this big show to celebrate our whole career, our whole history, I had certain expectations, but let's just get right into it, okay? Okay, so full disclosure, I got a pair of free tickets to the show, and not a big deal. It's not like it was like front row seats, but I mean, I didn't pay the $135 ticket price. I was gifted a pair of tickets, and I went with a friend of mine, and she had never been to a Kiss concert before, not even necessarily a Kiss fan, but was going because was like, let's just see what this is all about. I was kind of like prodding her to go, and so she agreed. I got there, right about showtime and saw the opening act, which was a painter. I mean, I don't know. No disrespect to the guy and to people who think that's a good idea to have a painter as an opening act, even if he's like a rock and roll painter or he was on some TV show and some people knew who he was. I don't know. I kind of want to see a band or I want to see nothing. I mean, that was just silly right off the bat. So there was about a 20-minute break in between the painter and then with Kiss coming on. Of course, they opened the show with Detroit Rock City. That's pretty much par for the course. They did a 2-hour show that was, from a spectacle-wise or in terms of the production, was exceptional. It was very good. There were certain parts that the visuals were really, really cool. I mean, they had a lot of just state-of-the-art lights and just there had this part where they had all these lights would sort of turn up and then they had a different visual on there, and you could really see the full effect of this when Gene did his like bass solo, blood spitting, God of Thunder bit. And he's like way up at the top of the arena, because he gets lifted up to the top. And then the screens turn around and it's like Gene's face on like 30 screens or whatever, all singing God of Thunder, at the same time with him with the makeup with the blood on, even though that video was not what he was doing personally. They would show a video of him up there and it was just slightly different. But anyways, it was a super cool visual. So I got to give him credit for that. Now, Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee from Motley Crue are in they're all over social media claiming that Kiss has stolen ideas from the Motley Crue finale tour and stealing the set and whatever. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the Motley Crue tour. I like Motley Crue, but let's be honest. I mean, if there wasn't for Kiss, there would be no Motley Crue. So maybe it's coming full circle and, maybe Kiss did borrow a couple of things from the show. I just don't know. I also don't care. Kiss always kind of overpromises and, in my view, kind of underdelivers in terms of their set list. They're always talking about, we're going to try this and we're going to try that. And I remember a standard criticism that they used to level out against Ace and Peter was that they couldn't learn as many songs as were needed. So that's why the set lists were always pretty much focused on just a certain same 20 songs or whatever, mostly from the 70s. Occasional 80s tunes thrown in, and then like a newer one at the time, like Psycho Circus was new, so a couple of songs from that. And it was always like they can't learn the songs, but like when you get these uber musicians like Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer in there who know every song and are capable of learning more songs, the idea is you would be playing more songs. And in this case, they didn't really. They stuck to mostly the standard Kiss fare. And now again, I'm not necessarily complaining. I'd have been upset if they didn't do Detroit Rock City. I would have been upset if they hadn't done Do You Love Me or I was glad they brought back 100,000 Years. That's pretty much my favorite song of the band ever. I mean, it probably is my favorite Kiss song. They still did Cold Gin. As far as the 80s goes, they did I Love It Loud from Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up from Lick It Up, Heaven's on Fire. And then they kind of jumped forward they did Psycho Circus, and they did one song off Sonic Boom, which to me was just completely unnecessary. And honestly, like, I could feel the boredom in the crowd when that song was on. Nobody knew the tune. They just didn't give a shit. But Kiss wants to play a song from that, fine. But I feel like it was kind of a wasted 5 minutes. I mean, the audience certainly didn't appreciate it. I didn't care one way or the other, but it was certainly a time where I sat down. I'd been standing, rocking out, and I kind of sat down and was like, all right, maybe I'll check in on social media and stuff like that. Not a lie. It just was like, I don't really care about this particular tune. The show, like I said, was about 2 hours, and they covered all the little things they have to cover. The finale comes out, or the encore, I should say, and this time Eric Singer is sitting at a piano singing Beth, and then at the end, the other guys come out, and they're like, oh, look at him singing this sad song that, Peter Criss wrote a super long time ago, and it means nothing to Eric Singer, but whatever. He's playing the Peter Criss role. All right, sorry, I'm letting my little bias slip out. Apologies. So the show ended. They do Rock and Roll All Night, of course. They do, and they say goodnight. And it was, it was a satisfying show. It was a fun show. Now, I had mentioned that I went with a woman who'd never seen Kiss before. And she came out with it, was just like, no lie, that was great. I really liked it. I mean, she had a really seriously good time, had no expectations, didn't understand the distinction necessarily that there were fake guys in the band. We discussed it later. I can bring that up. It's later on in the video. But to the casual fan or just the first-time viewer, that was their experience of a Kiss show, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. And, all things considered, I mean, I kind of did too. It was a fun show. Now let me get to the constructive criticism, okay? This part of the video is where I'm going to say what I wish had been there. Now, we did table the discussion about bringing back the other guys. That's fine. But I do feel as though they need to pay a little bit more of an homage to those guys and give a little credit to not just Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, but everyone who had been in the band. They were careful in their set list choice to pick songs from pretty much every era of the band. A lot from the original era, a little bit from the 80s, but one from Creatures, one from Lick It Up, one from Animalize, and then that was it. And then they really didn't go any further, so they technically really didn't cover the Bruce Kulick era, even though he was on the tour for Animalize. It's a little asterisk there on that one. So I kind of felt like with the visuals, there's a gigantic video screens behind the band, okay, and then all sorts of stuff that was usually showing the action on the stage, but they also had two big side screens that were showing the action on the stage. There were certain times where the visuals behind the band were showing sort of vintage Kiss. So in other words, they're playing, I don't know what it was, Deuce or something, I think, and the video behind it was showing Kiss, a black and white video of Kiss from 1975, the Winterland video of them doing Deuce. So you're seeing the current version of the band on stage playing it, and the visual is showing the original version of the band playing it. I thought that was cool as fuck, and I thought they should have transferred that on to various other eras of the band. So, for example, when they're doing I Love It Loud, the visual could be either the I Love It Loud video, which featured Eric Carr and Ace, or video of their show from Brazil. Their final shows ever in their original run with the makeup were their biggest shows in their history when they played down in Brazil with the version of the band with Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent. They definitely played I Love It Loud. I have the video. So they could have shown that as footage and showing this is the version of the band at that time. Remember, they're celebrating their entire career. This is the end of the band. And it doesn't take away anything from the guys on stage who were playing the song to show a visual of the band at that time. If you're just going to pretend like the 80s period didn't happen, then why play the songs? So, for example, when they do Lick It Up, why couldn't they show some of the Lick It Up video behind them and show Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent along with Gene and Paul? Because that was the version of the band at that time. Or the visual of them taking the makeup off or something, their MTV thing. When they go to Heaven's on Fire, they should be showing some footage with Mark St. John and Eric Carr, both of whom are deceased at this point. That could have been a nice point to have pointed out, to say these are two former guys in the band that were really significant, yada, yada. I mean, I know St. John wasn't that significant, but Eric Carr sure was. And they could have shown them, or, there's no live footage, as far as I know, of Mark St. John, so they might have shown just a Bruce Kulick. Tears Are Falling, which they didn't play, but I heard they do sometimes. I wish they would have played it. And then they could have shown some of that. So you see where I'm going with this, okay? So to pay homage to those other guys, because they're never going to bring them back. The idea that they were going to have Vinny come out for a song or former members, that just it wasn't going to happen, okay? Especially not Ace and Peter, because they're not going to be considered side members when they were the original band. And so these other guys do the whole set, and then Ace and Peter come out for like a song, or Ace comes out. I mean, they were never going to do that, okay, no matter how much money you offered them, and they weren't probably offering too much, you know. So to me, the set list was a big deal, and it was a bit of a disappointment. They could have pulled something from left field. Maybe they'll change it as time goes by, but at this point, you know, I've been watching a couple of videos from some other cities, and it is so the same every single night, down to exactly what Paul Stanley said. I mean, he's been doing that since 1974. He says the same thing every night, but it's like literally like every single effing word. Now let's bring up the idea of was there lip syncing involved? Were they playing to tracks or something like that? You know, the controversy that's going around. I have absolutely no problem believing at all that Paul Stanley lip syncs, at least at some of the show or even all of the show, because I've heard his voice giving out, and it wasn't that pleasant to listen to when I heard him in Lincoln a couple years ago on that Rock the Nation tour. He sounded fine most of the time, but there were a couple of times where his voice definitely wasn't there. So I don't have any problem believing that Kiss would do something like that. I actually think, though I have no proof that he did it the night that I saw them in Omaha, I don't see why that would be an exception. Just because I couldn't necessarily tell, or I have no evidence that he was doing it, doesn't mean I don't think it was possibly done. I mean, when he speaks, you know, and he was talking to the crowd, occasionally his voice would cut out, like he was a little bit hoarse. But then when he sings, you don't hear it. So again, you know, nobody says he's lip syncing the talking parts in between. And when he do, like for Heaven's on Fire, when he do the wah, you know, whatever, it sounded bad, you know. And then when the song itself, it sounded fine. So it may have been lip syncing. Again, no proof. I think the whole idea is shitty to do that. If your voice can't handle it, then maybe you call it a day. I don't know. I also know that they're playing night after night after night after night. And on the last tour, they had to take days off in between so Paul could rest his voice. Now, if you're doing a show on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 nights in a row, without taking a day off, Paul Stanley's pushing 70 years old, and he was already having voice troubles, and yet sounds pretty good during the show. So I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying I don't have a hard time believing it. And again, the crowd did not seem to notice. It's not an excuse. I think it's bullshit. I think if you're collecting money from people to see you perform live, and don't lip sync and don't have anything on a track or whatever. And so to me, I just think that's bogus. I don't think the other guys did it. I certainly don't think Gene Simmons was doing it. And I don't know about Eric Singer. Maybe he did faked Beth. I mean, who knows? So there were some good parts to the show. The bringing back of 100,000 Years, bringing back Let Me Go Rock and Roll, bringing back Calling Dr. Love. Those were positives. Ignoring a little bit more of the 80s, I would have liked to have heard something from that. Maybe even play something from Revenge. I mean, how weird would it be to see Kiss in makeup doing like Unholy or something, or Domino? I mean, I don't know. I see why they skipped Hot in the Shade. It's a pretty crummy album. Same with Crazy Nights. But I would have liked to have heard Tears Are Falling. It was a pretty significant single in the 80s, and it would have been their point to highlight Bruce Kulick, who was a member of the band for like 14 years, and it would have been nice on their We're Going Out of Business tour to at least have acknowledged a guy that was in the band for 15 years. And But what are you going to do? Kiss shows no respect for their past and no respect for the old fans. They just, like, as long as they got new fans to fill the void, they don't really care. So I don't know. You can see this was pretty much a mixed review. I mean, I'm glad I saw the show. I'm glad, I can say I saw Kiss on their final tour. Maybe, but I don't know. I'm saying I kind of said goodbye to me being like a fanatical sort of fan a long time ago. Now I can legitimately just say goodbye to the band, and I can enjoy the past that I used to enjoy. And maybe when this end of the road thing is over, I won't have to be subjected to the part of Kiss that I don't like. But in this case, they got $0 from me because I got a free ticket and I didn't buy any merchandise. So there you go, Gene and Paul. Take care, guys.